Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Rides a Stream. This week we are going to be discussing Lost, uh, episode number 24 of season one. We are in Exodus part two. Joining me as always is Travis Licata, and I'm Michelle. So you probably know us by now. So if you've been following us every week, this week has been well, I'm just gonna say it's quite a banger. Um, there may be a few puns through this episode,
Hard
as
not to.
we discuss Lost episode that was recorded actually back on May 25th of 2005. We have a limited number of flashbacks in this episode. We had three. But we definitely saw some cameos of some of the different characters that we all know and love and hate. So with that, Travis, how are you doing today? Are you going to be ready to talk about Exodus Part 2?
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best not to completely laugh at the demise of someone's um uh yeah, this was definitely I definitely remember this during my first watch being shocked by the events that took place. Um and I'm definitely chomping at the bit to hear your thoughts watching it for the first time. Um and then yeah, because surprise is just not the appropriate word to describe that moment.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah.
Okay. So as a reminder to all everyone that's watching, or if you have us in the background and you're listening to us, because we're a great vlog for that as well. Um, if you haven't seen the original Lost episode, please take a pause and go do that because we will be having a number of spoilers, as we always do each week when we discuss this. And if you saw the series when it was first out but haven't taken a look at it recently, maybe again take a pause and go watch episode number 24 and then rejoin us. We will be here. Um, but otherwise, I think if you're all right with this, Travis, we can do the plot synopsis and then we can talk about initial thoughts. I have a few. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
okay. So, continuing on from part one, where we saw Russo come running into camp looking for Saeed. We pick up where Jack, Locke, Kate, Hurley, and Arts have arrived at Black Rock with Rousseau, where there are explosives. So uh, Rousseau does not stick around, though. She says, I got you here. I'm done. I'm off. So she is left, and Jack is worried because he's like, hey, we need to go get her because we don't know how to get back. And of course, Locke steps up and goes, I know how to get us back. So anyway, Arts and Hurley elect to stay outside of Black Rock. They're not interested in going into, Captain Hook's ship that's run aground, or whoever owned the ship way back when. But Jack, Locke, and Kate go in. They do some looking around. They step on some skeletons. They see a lot of cobwebs, but lo and behold, they find a chest full of dynamite. So um, Kate wants to help, but Jack says no. Uh, Locke and I have it. We'll carry the chest out. And so they do that. And of course, Arndt sees that and says, whoa, 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 everybody carefully put the chest down, step away. you know, this is dangerous. So, as the resident science guy, he does give an in-depth lesson on the dangers of old dynamite and how it can sweat nitroglycerin in hot climates. So I'm going to take a pause and say this stuff definitely takes a page from the classic 1953, The Wages of Fear. If you haven't seen this movie, it is kind of a long one, 147 minutes, but definitely worthwhile. But this is definitely an homage to that film. So as he goes through, he's explaining, he takes a lot of time, gets kind of pushy and demanding, tells Kate to take off her overshirt so he can drench it in water, wrap up the dynamite. He's explaining how careful you have to be. And I don't know what he did. I think he did kind of a flick of the wrist and became a little careless and spectacularly blows up. The biggest surprise of the episode by far. Hurley thinks that Arndt's death is the result of his curse because he becomes very introspective and pretty quiet. Kate comforts him with some kind words. Locke takes over for Arndt's and at one point mentions that he's never been good with the game operation and then goes, "Bzz," thereby scaring Jack and probably giving him a mild heart attack. But anyway, after drawing the shortest sticks, wooden sticks, not the dynamite sticks, Kate and Locke are going to carry the unstable sticks of dynamite in their respective packs. Jack begins to kind of take the lead and talks about the plan of how they're going to get back over to the capsule. Because as you remember, these dynamite is to try to blow the hatch. But Locke actually adds some advice, saying instead of walking in a straight line, they should stagger. And kind of surprisingly, I guess, Jack actually takes his advice and kind of takes it right in, which is a bit different from, I think, what might have happened some episodes ago, especially when Jack was really pissed at Locke about Boone. At one point, as they're hiking through the forest, Hurley waxes about what could be in the capsule. So think, 1950s TV dinners, maybe a retro television in there, a nice Jetson sofa, all these good things. And he even asked what Locke thinks might be in the capsule, to which he responds, he thinks it hopes or believes it will hold hope, which I thought was really kind of telling of Locke's personality that we've gotten to know over the weeks. Let's turn to the raft. Sawyer once again proves his despicable side. He reads through some of the messages in the bottle, that conveys somebody's getting a little friendly with Scott or Steve. Walt definitely knows the score because he says one's dead, the other one's alive. And then Sawyer's trying to figure out who Hugo is. And of course, I forgot that Sawyer probably wasn't privy to the fact that Hurley is actually Hugo, that has the millions and millions of dollars. And Walt kind of chastises him, like, why are you doing that? Those are private. To which, it is kind of hard to take serious when Sawyer's wearing his uneven glasses. Good that he remembered to take them. But we also find that Sawyer has his decent side, and that comes out when the rudder detaches from the raft. And without hesitation, he rips off his shirt. Yeah, nice view for the ladies. And immediately jumps into the ocean to go get the rudder and bring it back. They all work together, which is really nice. And when Michael actually sees the gun wrapped up in the shirt, I think he's a little bit pained by that. And I think that's a point where I wish that Jack had probably been a little more forthcoming that, hey, I gave him a gun so that way, in case
Yeah.
anything happens, you know, you have a weapon, as well as the flare gun. But Michael kind of hands it in stride and gives Sawyer the bundle of the shirt and the gun and suggests that he gets covered back up, so that way he doesn't get burned, and leaves it at that. And then at one point, Michael does teach Walt how to steer the raft. Nice father and son moment. Saeed comes to Shannon's rescue as she shoulders a lot of baggage, both physical and emotional. As we all know, Boone died a few episodes ago, and she's still pretty emotional about that. She was mad at Saeed, but Saeed does comfort her, and that's also nice to see. Um, the rest of the survivors work to walk towards the cave. Sun sees Shannon's stress as she returns to where Boone has died, and she explains that Boone had been brave. Shannon's just kind of disconnected, I think, emotionally. And Sun actually asks if Shannon thinks that we, survivors, are being punished by fate. And Claire interjects that no one is punishing them. There is no such thing as fate, which again kind of gives some clarity about the different survivors and their ideology. Lastly, bringing around Rousseau, who did not return to the forest and go back into hiding, has once again returned to the beach, yelling and wanting Saeed. Kind of a broken record there, but Charlie, who is with Claire, takes off to find Saeed, leaving Claire and Rousseau alone. Rousseau gets really interested in Claire's baby. And interestingly, Claire has a flashback or a memory of when she was missing all those weeks ago. And she sees Rousseau trying to get her baby. And the scratch marks on Rousseau's arm are actually from Claire. Dun, dun, dun. And just as Charlie finds Saeed, who is leading the survivors to the cave, Claire screams off screen. Rousseau has hit Claire in the head or over the head and has taken her baby. Saeed and Charlie go after Rousseau. Saeed knows she is headed off for the black pillar of smoke. They make a stop at the drug runner's plane crash, where Charlie comes face to face with an old friend and nemesis, bags upon bags of heroin. What will he do? And we did have 3 flashbacks where Jin is cleaning his shirt in the men's bathroom, where he is threatened by one of his father-in-law's henchmen, who knows that Jun was planning to run away when they got to LA. So separately, we happen to see Saeed amongst the security saying, I didn't leave my bag unattended. Are you done with me? I have a plane to catch. Flashback 2, Charlie in the Sydney hotel with a one-night stand. He's desperately looking for his drugs, which he finds that little baggie that we saw in the opening episodes. Come to find out, the woman only slept with him for his drugs. What a user in more ways than one. She beats him up while she's trying to get his packet of drugs. When she can't get it, she leaves and says, oh yeah, good luck with that band, drive, whatever. She has no interest in Charlie whatsoever. And in flashback 3, Michael and Walt are waiting for their flight. Walt is shutting Michael out, presumably about Vincent having to be in the storage hold. We've seen the movies. That storage hold is not the best, but whatever. Michael tries to comfort him as best he can, and he excuses himself from Walt, who continues to give him the silent treatment. Michael calls his mom and really wants her help when they get back. He's got a studio apartment. He hasn't planned for having Walt in his life. Said that he never expected this, never planned this. This is not how it was supposed to be. We get a cameo of Locke being wheeled by, and then Walt has come up behind Michael. How much has he heard? And Michael is kind of like, hey, bud. And Walt tells him, kind of cuts him off and says he needs new batteries. So sorry for the long-windedness, but there's a lot here. And definitely wanted to kind of touch on a lot of them. So that context for all of our conversation that I'm sure will be absolutely enlightening and entertaining.
Oh, that
So
was great.
with that, as our veteran watcher of Lost, uh, thoughts on this episode, initial thoughts.
Well, one, great synopsis. Two, um, this episode really highlights how the creators of the show can pack so much into one episode. Um, there's a lot of different things going on. There are definitely some emotional moments that, you know, pull at the heart here in this episode, whether it's Shannon or Claire. Um, there's the ours like there is no way to prepare if you've never seen this episode and you see that for the first time. It is just shocking. It's still, as of, watching it a handful of times at this point, you know, it's still shocking to see. You were right. Like he's trying to communicate with them, and he just kind of lifts it using his hands to gesture that Dynamite is so temperamental, and just that motion. Uh, Hurley's responses to it seem completely legit. I would probably be despondent in that way too, where, you know, his first word is like dude, and then when Kate comes up to him, he's like, "Oh, that was messed up," and he, even though Arst was a complete ass to him, Hurley
Yeah.
recognizes that he was just trying to help, and he got blown to bits, um, and then he takes the brunt of it by blaming himself, which is crazy. But going back to his episode where we had flashbacks with him,
Yeah.
a lot of bad stuff happened after he used those numbers to win the lottery. So, I thought that maybe the episode where he talked with Danielle and that she believed him that the numbers were cursed, and he kind of felt that relief. I was hoping that maybe, I guess that doesn't change the fact that he still believes that they're cursed. Um, but yeah, there was a lot. Again, we say this a lot. It's a great show. Um, I think it would be hard to pick like five favorite episodes from this season alone. Um, so um, I really would love to hear your experience watching it for the first time, because there is so much that happens.
Yeah.
Um, and the unfortunate, arst explosion.
That's the top of my list. I have like five initial thought points. Um, so, surprise is not, I would agree with you. Surprise is not the best all encompassing. Maybe what the F? And I think I was even like, what? What just happened? You know, uh, and like I said, it was spectacular. They did a great job, I think, with the effects for that shot as well. The fact that you saw the blow up, and the camera didn't pan away when it happened. But they did it so there wasn't a lot of blood, but you still, when you later see a piece of arse on Jack's shoulder, and Hurley even kind of, dude, you got some arse on here. You got a piece of arse on your shoulder. I was
Amazing that
waiting
they could
for,
make light of it.
yeah. Which brings up the fact that there's some black humor in this episode, and it it almost feels wrong to giggle, or but you can't help but kind of like he did kind of he was kind of an obnoxious and demanding and kind of over to the top fellow, So I don't know. He went out with a bang, which I guess is, a good way to go. You're remembered. So, and I really like the homage to Wages of Fear. There is another movie out there that I should comment on because um, my copy is from the Criterion Collection. There is I think it's June. Criterion will be releasing William Frecken's Sorcerer, and it's very similar to Wages of Fear. Similar premise. He goes into a little bit more of the characters, but I mean, it really is based on the 1953 movie. So definitely check those out. Sorcerer is a shorter movie. I haven't seen it, but we are planning to watch it once it comes out. But I definitely um, I really liked that homage. I thought it was just great. I really hope that they were homaging either Wages of Fear or Sorcerer when they did that scene. The other surprise, I think, for me was the henchman threatening Jen in the airport bathroom. I think that was a big surprise for me as well. That Jen was planning to run. I mean, he was going to run with Sun, I'm sure, and take her with him. So it's interesting that they both separately, were thinking the same thing. I mean, I think Sun was just going to run away, but yeah, she wasn't going to go to LA. That's right. Had to think back to that. She was just going to do a runner there in Japan, there in Sydney, or Japan, wherever they were. So, yeah, that was a big surprise for me. I also felt that this was a great lesson in how stress affects people and how it can bring out the worst in people, such as Claire struggling to care for her baby. And I'm sure for every parent with their firstborn is like struggling because the baby doesn't come with instruction manual. And you can read and prepare all you want, but at the end of the day, when that baby's there and it's crying and you're trying to figure out how to alleviate the stress that the baby's going through can really cause a lot of stress for the parent. I also feel that stress can sometimes bring out the best. And I thought Sawyer not hesitating for a moment to jump into the ocean and swim to the rudder, irregardless of what might be in the water, like a shark. He didn't hesitate to put his life at risk. So I thought that was actually really a great yin and yang, which is, something that we've seen in every episode so far, that they really find balance with the themes that they're exploring, the writers. So my third point was the fact how well, when they divide, they really conquer, pacing of the episode with all their varying storylines and how they're able to weave them in, either have the payoff in that episode or at some point down the line. Because we had like, I think 4 or 5 different groups. So we had different threads of storylines going all over the place. It made for a really fast-paced, fast-moving episode. And I couldn't believe how fast this episode went. In fact, behind the scenes, if we were in the land of Oz. I mean, I think I took like 2 pages of notes on this one because it just was so fast. There was so much action going on. But it's good. It again, it balances out the prior, which was very emotional, very stressful, very tense filled. Then we've got all this action that they're getting payoff from the prior part. I enjoyed seeing Jack and Locke getting along so well after a lot of tension. And just really shows, you know, how good their banter, their chemistry is. I really did like seeing them kind of back in the fold with each other, and working together, talking with each other, to the point Locke kind of, you know, takes a Mickey of them, with the little buzz sound. I thought that was great. And it was a good, like, okay, humor, relieve some stress, okay, and then build back up. And of course, as I mentioned before, the black humor, arms blowing up, Pearly pointing to Jack, and just, generally some of the humor in there that we shouldn't laugh about. It's about death, it's about heavy things, but you can't help but chuckle, at least, or maybe have a full-on laugh. So anyway, those were kind of my initial thoughts. Definitely, uh, I will never forget Ark's death. That
Yeah.
one is in the memory banks.
Yeah. Um, that sequence with Locke with making the operation noise. Um,
Mhm.
and you can tell Jack's annoyed, but Locke just has this big smile on his face. And, that's probably his way of easing his own tension because, like, leading up to that, you could tell he's like about to go in to grab the dynamite sticks. And Jack's like, oh, hold on. And he automatically puts his hands up.
Yep.
And Jack's like, maybe we should talk about that. He's like, all right. Like,
Yep.
I think he understands how dire the situation is, especially since ours just died. Um, and but knowing how tense it is, like the fact that he's able to alleviate that for himself, maybe even for Jack, um, because I think Jack maybe he's annoyed and because he asked, "Oh, you like to play games?" And John's just like, "Absolutely!" Like, and I think maybe that helps Jack deflect some of that annoyance or tension that he has. I think Locke does a really good job in this part.
Yeah. Can I interject? And I apologize for interrupting, but this
No,
is
you're
a
fine.
perfect place for this question because I definitely had a read about when Jack asks, "Do you like to play games?" And Locke says, "Oh, I certainly do." What was your read on that? What did you think about that? Were you thinking, "Oh, he likes board games," or were you thinking more like he plays games with people or emotions, or what was your read on that?
My first thought was going back to one of his flashbacks where he was working in a toy store and like
Okay.
showing that kid how to play Mousetrap. And I was like, and he just brought up Operation. So my thought was, and one of his first flashbacks, he was playing what, Risk at work or something like that,
Yeah, he's playing. Yeah, maybe it was Risk.
or something like some war game.
Yep.
So my impression of that was that he loved I think John was talking about board games. I think Jack was asking the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe John's response isn't necessarily the same thing that Jack was thinking of. So I think Jack was maybe thinking, "Do you like messing with people?"
Mm-hmm.
But John here's like playing games. Oh yeah, I love playing games, board games, whatever. So that's how I took it. What about you?
Yeah, I took it the other way. that Jack was definitely like the undertone was, oh, so you like messing with people? And Locke knowing full darn well exactly what Jack was asking, that it wasn't about board games, that it was something else, but that he responded so casually that of course I do. So I think he knew
It could be that.
full well what that
Absolutely.
was asking. And I think, yeah, maybe he does like messing with people, but he also likes board games. But I think yeah, I think it could be taken either way. I just really was reading it that Jack was framing a very specific question, you know. And Ter Locke knew it and he went light about it, but that there's depth to, yeah, he likes to play board games. We've seen that in the flashbacks, like you said, but he also likes to mess with people too. Boone getting conked on the head and a hallucinogenic applied to that injury to cause him to, have visions that are not there. So
So
yeah,
do you
that
think
was
that
my
would
read.
classify as um like playing games? Like I'm trying to think of like when I think of someone playing games, I think of someone being I guess intentionally mean. And I know
Yeah.
obviously conking someone in the head isn't great, but like John was trying to like teach a lesson, I guess, for him to be able to like move on, which I
Yeah.
guess you could look at as a game. Um, I'd never thought of it that way, so that's interesting. Um,
But I think there was intention there. And as we talked in prior episodes, it is one of approach. And we know that Locke will take different approaches depending on who the person is and what kind of lesson he's trying to convey to
sure.
them. Um, he even did it with Charlie, kind of setting him up and having him go up, um, and making him kind of bait for the boar. So it is intentional, but I feel like Locke knows that he's in control or senses that he's in control. I think the Boone thing was probably when he was definitely not in control. But generally speaking, I think that he's like, yeah, of course I like to play games. I'm in control. I have the control. And I know the best method. So, I do think that that's kind of it. It's not a full on, I don't think it's a full on like trying to be really hurtful. And I think that that's where the control comes in. Otherwise, I don't think he would have put people in the situations that they're in because
Right.
I think he would have come to the rescue. I think he would have, saved their hide. Um, but I do think that there is I think there's more going on there with it. But I just think there's so many different readings to that particular moment and the question.
Yeah, I was wondering if him doing making that simple noise and getting Jack's attention in that way, and when Locke is smiling and he responds, I wonder if in some weird way that's his way of trying to get Jack just to loosen up.
Maybe.
Be like, hey, we're already amped up. You don't need to be amped up anymore. Let's.
Yeah.
So maybe that's his way of like giving Jack a lesson. Just say, hey, we're already tense. Like we get it.
Yeah.
Like gotta lighten up or so because Jack clearly he then gets annoyed with Kate for wanting to carry a bag, and Locke's just like, we don't have time to argue who gets to have the honor of potentially dying.
Yeah.
Let's draw straws. And but I do think um that Jack kind of recognizes Locke's understanding of the situation, like the stagger their formation.
Yeah.
And I think he also appreciates when he gives directions and Locke says, yes, sir. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Locke was being like um weird about it or trying to like be sarcastic in any way. I think Locke recognizes the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Jack's giving some instructions. He's like, all right, totally cool. Yes, sir. Like, I'm
Yep.
paying attention. And Jack kind of gives him a look for a second, and he's just like, all right then. Like,
Yeah.
so you're right on point. I feel like they find a way to kind of, you know, bury whatever hatchet. And then in previous episodes, like I feel like we've seen them more. Maybe it was just last week's episode or the last two episodes where they're like walking off together trying to make decisions or
Mm-hmm.
um so it's interesting that there's been such animosity. I mean, Jack literally tackled him after Boone died.
Yeah.
Um, but it appears that there is some level of, I think you're right. Locke just seems like he wants to help people,
Mm-hmm.
which is innately what Jack always wants to do. But maybe Jack always just wants to lead and do it his way. But he seems to be more approachable as far as getting Locke's take on things.
Yeah.
Um, which I think is, you said it earlier, it's a big change from earlier in the season where maybe Jack was like, why should we listen to this dude?
Yeah.
Especially after what happened with Boone. So,
Yeah. I feel like in the last episode, they kind of came to a little bit of an understanding too that decisions that they make are out of the interest of the greater good, so to speak, and they each made decisions over the weeks to not give everybody all the information, for different reasons. Um, and I think they've come to terms with that they're each trying to for the do good for the entire group, represent the group, and lead
yeah.
them in a direction that's going to help them all survive. So I think maybe that was a good step. And then, you know, cause and effect. Now we have them at a place where uh, Locke can take a little bit of humor. And Jack is like, kind of like, okay, I should listen to him. He suggests that we stagger instead of going in a straight line and having some space. Okay, sure, we can do that your way. You know the strategy. Jack's the leader, type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the other scenes that kind of stick out for you from this episode?
Let me go to my trusty
And then I'll ask our
list.
first question because if we talk about them now, we'll kind of cover our respective Travis lists.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, obviously Arts was on my list of like most standout moments. Um, I thought that um, you mentioned Hurley and Locke's conversation about what might be in the hatch.
Yeah,
Um,
thoughts
I
about
thought
that.
I thought that was interesting that like Hurley's response was, old 50s TV dinners and TVs and Twinkies and all this other stuff. And Jack says, oh, or John says, I like Twinkies too.
Hmm.
And Hurley's like, no, no, really, what do you think's inside? And I, I honestly think that what Hurley and John say are almost the same thing. Like
Hmm.
John just thinks there's hope inside, for their survival, and which is essentially what Hurley's hoping for, just in a more specific format. Like,
Yeah.
um, So I thought it was interesting, kind of indicating where Locke isn't always a big speaker. He
Mhm.
feel like he's speaks when he feels like it's necessary.
Yeah,
And he's just very minimalistic in his vocal form. I have no idea what that's like. Uh, I'm always the I am always on that side. I'm never more where Hurley, I think, Kate has to coax him into saying stuff, but I think he can get to the point where like last week, he spills the beans about Kate to John, and he's just like, "Oh, how the hell am I supposed to know who knows what and all this other stuff?" And
true.
um, so I feel like they're both saying the same thing. One just uses much fewer words.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
I do
was,
really think.
oh
Oh, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say the performances in this episode are really good.
Hmm.
Um, between Claire and Charlie, reacting in different ways um, to her baby being taken, um, to Saeed's reaction to Shannon, um, when Claire's trying to like say she's gonna go with Charlie and Saeed. I think you can tell that Son, Charlie, and Saeed are impacted by like her pleas to like go with them because she blames herself.
Yeah,
She thinks it's her fault, and um, so it's this episode. I mean, I've only mentioned a couple scenes, but like this episode really kind of finds a way to dig at you a little bit with these moments, and just their expressions. Like Shannon and she looks so sad in this episode, particularly when she gets back to the cave, and or when she's talking to Saeed and she's just telling him that's too much.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
that was
Claire's,
heart-wrenching there because I felt her pain, that it is too much, what they're having to go through. They just can't kind of politely exist on the island. No, you've got, Rousseau running around, you've got, the others, you've got some sort of huge Godzilla monster security system running around. And then just the personalities within the group themselves, um, just creating fragmentation of, being able to come together. I kind of noted that I felt that even though we have all these storylines going on, I feel like we're in the first weeks again where people are somewhat on the same page, but also not, and it is heart-wrenching. I'm going to say that again. For all these characters, what they're trying to go through, what they firmly believe in, even though it may not be what's for the best. For instance, with Shannon, all the emotional baggage of Boone's death, her interactions with Boone, probably her years and years of using him to get money, running these little scenarios to get, at the money that she felt that she deserved, um, all takes its toll. And I think it goes back to the first few episodes. And I think it's Saeed that says about hope. If you lose hope, you're really in trouble.
yeah,
And I like how Locke, who keeps it kind of simple, that hope is going to be the answer to their survival, having some hope that they can hold on to. Otherwise, you become desperate, you become careless. You're not making decisions that are the best for you, because you're in a desperate tailspin into, a dark abyss of emotions, be it physical, mental, whatever it relates to. So I definitely felt that, Locke is really vocalizing kind of a central theme, and, through the various episodes, that you need to have hope, you need to keep going forward. You need to have something that you're working towards. Otherwise, you're kind of adrift and lost, and you'll end up lost. Um, and you'll end up, steps back instead of moving forward, in your life. So it's very philosophical in a way. What
Yeah.
um, kind of you get a payoff in this, and also shows how, balancing all those things, having these threads intertwined through each episode, and how they, you get the payoff, through the various episodes. I had noted, I mean, I guess I'm going to start with question two, because I struggled with question two, which is, who's the most interesting character from the episode? And I'm going to take a cop out. Everyone in my thought, because I thought everybody did an absolutely fantastic job
Yeah.
with their performances, like you said earlier, but just everybody's going through at the moment, and that we don't get a real central character, at least in my impression of watching the episode, the couple of times. I just felt like everyone had to bring it. There was so much action, there was so much going on. You really had to have performances that were on the mark. Similar to earlier episodes where you've got the group up on the mountain, and they're trying to understand the transmission, and what a fantastic scene that was. That was
Yeah.
just this. And then you have this episode where you have all these various performances that have to really come together. So it's really this, for this episode. And so, for me, I thought that everybody delivered exactly what they needed to. I didn't think anybody delivered a poor performance. I thought that everybody brought exactly what they needed to the episode. That's me. But how about for you, Travis?
I mean, when I initially started writing my list of like what characters stood out, I think I
Mhm.
started with six or seven. And like even and to your point, even a scene when Charlie is at the plane with Saeed,
Mhm.
and Saeed's telling him what the drug smugglers were carrying, and tosses him the statue, and you hear the statue break. You don't see it fall to the ground, but it breaks, and Charlie's view just goes down. And we all know what he's looking at. We don't have to see it. We've already seen it before.
Yeah.
And the expression on his face, and then when they pan from the ground up to look at him as he's looking down, just a knowing the turmoil that's going on within
Yeah.
as he looks down at his addiction, staring at him in the face, uh, is incredible.
Great camera work too, because that low angle, and I think there's a little bit of a forced perspective, because I feel like the ground in him is very short, instead of being kind of a normal low angle shot up. I think they really kind of forced that angle a bit, which I think really adds tension, because it's almost awkward and off-putting, because you know something's not right with that angle. And I think that was a great call at that point, technically speaking. And of course it, the look on his face, the the flashback that fits in with that addiction that he has, the fact that, it's probably still there, is created by stress, and now he's very stressed out because Claire's baby has been taken. He is like told and promised Claire that he is going to get her baby back.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to shoulder.
Yeah. So as I was going through the characters, I like narrowed the list to three. And um just Hurley's response to Art's exploding um is both humorous and you can just you can see him struggling
Hmm.
um to take on the weight of like what he just saw. Um and then him being able to like kind of get back to reality by talking to Locke about what he thinks is in the hatch. I think Locke is obviously up there. His ability to diffuse Kate and Jack's argument about whether or not who's gonna carry a bag so that way they don't waste any time.
Hmm.
His ability to kind of, you know, make the operation sound effect uh, uh, loosen Jack up or annoy him, whichever way you want to look at it. Um, but I think if I'm gonna pick one, I'll go because I don't think you're wrong. Um, I'll say Saeed.
You think Saeed?
Um, I really appreciate him in several different aspects. One, the scene with Shannon, where at first he's just like, "Do you really need all of this stuff?" Because
Hmm.
she's trying to carry Vincent and the big suitcase and another bag. And when she drops the suitcase and some Boone's clothes fall out, he realizes, oh, this is something different. Like in that conversation and where she says it's too much, and he just says, not if I carry it for you. So his understanding that she needs help, even if she's not asking for it, and he's willing to offer it to her. The scene where Charlie punches Saeed
Yeah.
because he didn't give him a gun. Um, and before that happened, like when Charlie's putting the two and two together that, oh, Russo took the baby and he puts his hands on his head and he's like, I shouldn't have left Claire alone.
Yeah.
Like he got bruised by Russo. And he's gonna punch Saeed again, and Saeed just grabs him by the throat and says, "Do not hit me again," and tells him there's plenty of blame to go around.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like he diffuses that situation right then and there. He says, "I know where she's going," um, and he and Charlie run to the gun case, um, and is willing to give Charlie a gun after telling him no before.
Hmm.
But he holds on to the gun while Charlie grabs it, just say, we're gonna do this right. We're not here for revenge. We're here to get the baby back. Um, so I thought Charlie understood what Saeed was saying.
Hmm.
Um, and Saeed's also kind of a beast. Like he was running full sprint. I think he could have kept going, but he recognized that Charlie was about to keel over from following. And I don't know. I appreciated how logical Saeed was in these moments, how compassionate he was.
Hmm.
Um, and when Claire was trying to join, he also looked like he felt Claire's pain because previously he was telling Charlie, "Hey, we can't judge Russo. She's a mother who lost a child, just like Claire is now, you
Hmm.
know." And I think that's his way of saying, "Hey, we can't just kill her. Like,
Hmm.
we can't just go off and which, and I think it's just a way of also saying, hey, if you start shooting, you might hit the baby too. Um, So I really appreciated his mindset and where Locke and Jack, they were kind of working together. I felt like Saeed was trying to handle making these decisions all on his own. Um, and just, and again, but I think you're like, I could easily pick Claire, easily pick Charlie,
Yeah.
um, Locke, Sawyer, even the conversation with Walt and Michael where, Walt starts asking him like, hey, like, why didn't you
Yeah.
guys stay together? And Michael's still trying to be respectful about saying, "Hey, we're interests separated and just didn't work out." And then he's like, "Well, why didn't you see me?" And I think Michael is just like at this point, like, "Look, your mom just didn't want me to see you." Like, I don't think there was any other way for him to say it without it being a lie.
Yeah.
But it was really cool that Walt was like, "Well, she was wrong."
I
And
like that too. And Michael's expression, there was a little bit of a smile, and I think, if that dialogue had happened weeks before, that is not the way that conversation would have gone. And I think that showed a lot of growth between Michael, and Walt, finding ground for their relationship. And I
yeah,
think,
no, go ahead.
now just that, they ever get home, I think that him having a studio apartment, or him getting up, to go early to work, I know he'll find a solution, because now he's invested, where, gosh, he's only had Walt for a day or two, and he's just not invested. He's still reeling over the fact that he now has his son, who he'd wanted years ago.
Yeah,
And now he does. But, you know, Walt has his own opinions and his own point of view and his own beliefs, and, you know, he's his own person that Michael now needs to get to know, and, be both a friend and a father, you know,
yeah.
that we
And
can get to know each other.
the scene where Michael finally admits, like, "Hey, your mom didn't want me to see you."
Yeah.
Like him opening up and being honest in a way that's not trying to like he wasn't trying to hurt Walt's image of his mom, but he also just wanted to be honest. And I wonder if that is made possible by Walt's admission last week, where he talks about, "Hey, I'm the one that burned the raft,"
Hmm.
and he recognizes that Walt is willing to be honest about something, you
Yeah.
know, and so their relationship has evolved in such a way that's kind of just so nice to see.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, there are other relationships that have evolved too. Um, but obviously, with being a father and son, that's such a big deal, and there's such a big responsibility. It's kind of like
Yeah.
when Locke earlier in the season was telling Michael, "Hey, I'm honest with your kid. Like, I'm not trying to like treat him any differently. Like, he's out here with just like the rest of us. Like, I'm
Hmm.
just honest, and we're friends, and we play backgammon together, and I think Michael is at a point where he feels comfortable enough to be honest and treat Walt in a way where it's like, all right, this is how it is. Your mom didn't want me to see you, essentially took you away from me. And I think that's important because I think kids need to know, you know, some truths, even if they're hard to
Yeah.
take in at first. So, um,
Especially in light to everything that has happened to Walt over the month or 2 months now. Um, losing his mom, finding out his stepdad didn't really want it, didn't really want him around. Now he's with, his real dad, who he doesn't know, trying to get to know, and then navigate the whole survival aspect. So, there's a lot for Walt. I actually appreciate that they have a youth in amongst the group. You know, the actor that plays Walt done a bang up job, really,
Yeah.
acting around a lot of adults that could be possibly intimidating. And the fact that he has good chemistry with everyone, and has a wonderful chemistry with Terry O'Quinn. I've
Yeah.
liked everything that Walt has been a part of. He really does a great job with his performance, which is, must be a little difficult when you're the only, youth that's on the set, and to be in a very adult program, you know,
Yeah.
and deal with adult themes. So, kudos to him. I guess if I did have, a favorite, maybe I'd have to give a nod towards him. And just, I'm going to say over the length of all the episodes, giving a nod to him. I think your choice in Saeed is a really good one. He read the room well. He's dealing with the stress. He's finding balance, and trying to do what he needs to do back on the beach while others are off trying to get, the dynamite and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He shows himself as, a good leader as well. I was going to ask you, last week we talked about Rousseau, and I mentioned that I thought she might be involved, actually. And this week, we find out that she's got her own motives. Claire sees her as having been involved when she was taken by Ethan, and some of those memories are starting to come out. I know I was somewhat vindicated that, like, yep, I called that one, because it's kind of hard to call stuff,
Yeah.
but I was happy to see, uh, that should not, I was satisfied to see that, yes, indeed, I had a good read on her. But I wasn't expecting the read. I wasn't expecting the flashback that Claire had. So I will say that was also a surprise for me. And the fact that I should have read that, because of the fact that she lost her child, and now here's another child, and it's boy. She's thinking that she's got a second shot at bringing up her son that was taken. Or alternatively, like Saeed says, is that she's looking to barter Claire's baby to get her son back. So I know I was surprised by that flashback.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what you'd like to comment on that part. Did you kind of read that as well? Was it a surprise for you when you first saw it and saw that flashback, or were you kind of like, oh, that's a surprise, or was it not a surprise for you?
It was a surprise, and I actually forgot that happened.
Hmm.
So when I saw it again, I mean, I was really trying to find an explanation to that moment.
Hmm.
Like now, obviously, Russo, as Saeed said, is taking Claire's baby to try to barter. Was that her motivation when they have that scene at night where, there's some kind of grabbing going on and Claire scratches her arms? Um, because I actually don't remember moving forward the answer to that question.
Hmm.
Um, but it is one of those moments where it makes you think, okay, what is going on? Yes, taking the baby to barter is not great. It's not good. Um, but to this point, I never viewed Russo as a like bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and seeing that scene with Claire at night, where it's the flashback where she's remembering scratching Russo, it makes me question, okay, what was going on? Like,
Yeah.
was she trying to take Claire at that point?
Or was she
Um,
trying to save her? Like as you were talking, I thought, what if Russo actually found her wandering around in the forest or excuse me, in the jungle, and she was trying to help kind of point her back to the survivors. And Claire, not being disoriented, maybe thinking that she was also a threat. And so she's remembering Russo as a threat, rather than Russo, who was maybe trying to help her. Um,
that's how they paint it, I think.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe that's really the true read of that situation. And unfortunately, we don't know what she's up to with the baby. It seems very plausible, Saeed's understanding of the situation, but I'm also kind of hesitant there because maybe there's really something else that we haven't seen that hasn't been
Yeah.
revealed to us, um, that has to do with Claire's baby and Rousseau. Um, so yeah, I'm being cautious again about that as being the way that it's been framed, whether that's really the truth. Is she going towards the pillar of smoke? I generally believe that that's where she's headed.
Yeah, and you've mentioned before questioning the characters as narrators, like
Mhm.
what's the truth? Like, is what they're saying actually what's really happening?
Hmm.
And I feel like Saeed, he might seem like the most reliable narrator. Um, like with Locke, it's like you never know what's happening underneath. Like, is his motivation to do something underhanded to direct someone in the right path?
Yeah,
Jack is, he's very bullish where he's like he, tunnel vision. I think Kate always wants to help, but she always also wants to kind of run away and protect herself,
yeah,
which is similar to Sawyer. Saeed just seems and Hurley's great, but we don't know enough about his
yeah. He's still
backstory to really get a gauge on like because I still remember him um talking to Walt some off comment about like yeah back where I'm from I'm known as a bit of a what word did he use um a warrior myself because
a
because
hero.
Walt called Locke a warrior or something.
Yeah, or a hero or something. Yeah, yeah. There was something about that, and it was kind of like, we need to know more about that. Yeah, Hurley is definitely still kind of a question mark. I mean, they all still have lots of history to be uncovered through flashbacks, but I still think of all of them, Hurley is still kind of one of the least known entities on the island.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I think that out of everybody, even though Saeed has some baggage himself with the going too far with interrogating, um, I do think he's also probably fairly controlled and understand. I mean, I think he's been kind of, I'm going to say conditioned for that, through his military training, that he, thinks differently from others, a bit more logically, um, because he does have formal training. We still don't know whether Locke has formal training of any sort or whether, he's just really great at common sense and has read a ton of books. We just don't know, you
yeah.
know. but I would tend to agree with you. I think Saeed is probably a really good call as a stable and reliable narrator versus the motivations and kind of the mental and emotional state of some of our other narrators, whether they're actually really reliable or not.
Yeah. So when gives his feedback on what he thinks Russo's doing, it's like okay, I'm gonna go with that. I believe that. Like
Hmm.
until something different happens, I feel like I can trust what Saeed says. So um, yeah, great
So
episode for him.
yeah. So, kind of circling back to our first question that we ask each episode, which, as a reminder, is what is your favorite scene or standout moment from the episode? You ready to give me your list?
Yeah. So
And
let's
do you
see.
have a
I
favorite?
It's between two.
Okay.
Um, so I mentioned Walt and Michael's conversation, where Michael's honest about Walt's mom, which also was right before Sawyer diving in to save the rudder.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed Hurley and Locke's conversation about the hatch.
Hmm.
Saeed grabbing Charlie by the throat and saying, "Don't hit me again." Um, just the control of not immediately wanting to punch him right back. Locke's demeanor, his logic, his humor, um, and accepting orders from Jack to kind of make sure that there's at least amount of conflict when they're dealing with the aftermath of the arts scene. Um, uh, and that's obviously one of the scenes. And then another scene. So I'm debating between the art scene and the scene where Claire is distraught, wanting to join um, the trek to find Russo, and Saeed's like, I don't think that's a good idea, and she's blaming herself and screaming.
Yeah,
And Sun looks emotional listening to her.
she does.
Saeed and Charlie have their own level of understanding what she's saying. Like I want to say that one because it's such an emotional scene and it's great, and we find out the name of the baby.
Yep.
Um,
We won't spoil
but
that one.
yeah, it just but I feel like, yeah, how can he just say it's not the art scene? Like, dude blew up. Like, I feel like that's the one I'm gonna go with. Like, just it's beyond it's shocking. Um, and and maybe the smiles or laughter I have for it is nervousness. Maybe there's a bit of like, I mean, no one should ever be blown up. Um, but he's a bit of a, you know, bit of a dick. I mean, just trying to think of the best word, like he's, being nasty to Hurley, and he was nasty to Hurley last week too. Like making comments about his weight and like,
Oh yeah, and he even said, hey, I'm losing weight here. How are you keeping the carbs, or something like that.
yeah,
And I'm just like, oh, that's so mean. He's
yeah.
so mean. Don't say
And
that
I
to
think that helps
Harley.
make it easier to deal with him blowing up because it's like, if it was one of the main cast that happened to,
I would have
like
been
I don't think they could
devastated.
find any humor with it.
Yeah.
Like, but because it's this character, and I mean he's only been in a couple episodes, but he feels like he's been around for a while because he is so out there with his like
Hmm.
opinion and like loudness and rudeness, and um so that's my pick. I'll say another one bites the dust is the winner for me episode.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Uh,
And even
what
though
about
he's
you?
not a main character, we we learn enough about him that we are impacted by his death. Versus like the woman who I think was like name I think her name was Janet, the woman that drowned,
Brianna?
and Kate had her passport. I I think it was Jan or Janet or something like that. We really don't know anything about her.
No.
But we've learned a lot about ours, and have been able to draw lots of opinions around his character. So I think, his demise was somewhat welcome to shut him up. But it was
Uh,
memorable. I
sure.
do wonder if on his CV, for roles after this one, yeah, I'm the one that was blown up. Do you remember that scene? I don't know. But Um, I had similar ones to you, Walt and Michael talking about why Michael wasn't around in his years prior to his mom's death. And Michael's reaction when Walt tells him, well, you should have been, that was wrong of her to not have you around. Charlie and Claire, when she finally, although doesn't out and out ask him for his help, she just tells him, get my baby back. I like that scene. My other scene that I thought was actually really good is Sawyer with those kooky glasses, and Walt as they're talking about the different people that he's reading the messages, and Walt is trying to be the voice of reason that, hey, those are private, you really shouldn't read those. And then they kind of get into a little conversation about writing letters and the fact that Sawyer, you know, tells Walt that the only important letter that he ever wrote was the one to the man that he was going to kill.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful. And how do you explain that to a young boy who's never had that kind of situation? Didn't have the kind of upbringing that Sawyer had, and the fact that you kind of wish that Sawyer would reveal that, he lost his parents. He was an orphan really young, because that would give a little bit of context for Walt to kind of have an understanding. Because I think he would have understood, or at least have some sort of initial comprehension of why Sawyer's letter, how it's so impactful to Sawyer. But he doesn't. He leaves that unsaid. Um, so maybe that's a storyline that will be picked up later. I don't know, but those were kind of the three. Obviously, aren't goes without saying when he is blown up. But as an alternative, I'm going to go with Sawyer and Walt, because he's both despicable and yet, has the ability to also be gallant, and a risk taker. And the fact that he said as much as he did to Walt, kind of, as a backhanded way, but, which is typical Sawyer. Um, but I'll go
I
with
mean,
that.
that's a heavy statement to lay on a 10-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
like of talking
Yeah.
about a person he's gonna kill. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like
Yeah.
that's still surprising that like it was so offhand, just like
Yeah.
that, you know, it's the only letter I've ever written. Like, and you're right. Walt tries to ask him why blood, and he's just like, because, he doesn't
Yeah.
go into the details. He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But it's oh, I can't imagine having like that. That's an intense conversation that is done in such a light way, which is actually incredible from as I'm thinking about that. Like, yeah, I don't know if they could have made that scene any lighter than they did. Like,
Yeah. They went from light to really, really heavy in just a couple of minutes that that scene was. Um, just amazing. Just absolutely amazing how they're able to balance that and really, go from 0 to 60 in a few seconds with the emotional or impactful intensity of a scene. So, yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, I know you sometimes have a third question. Um, do you have one this week?
I I did not just because I felt like there was so much in this episode, like the uh, the explosion, Russo coming and going, and the baby being taken. You know, the danger of being off at sea with the rudder falling off, like the handling of explosives after the fact. Like there was so much going on. Like I was like, I don't even know what the right question would be to focus on one thing
Yeah.
that would because I mean, you mentioned it right from the start. There's so much in this episode, and the entire cast does this, like you said, with your pick of the entire cast has to nail it, and they
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, and I feel like if you can watch a show and you can watch someone's performance and maybe they don't seem to fit the role that they're playing or but every character who plays the whoever every actor or actress who's in the role that they're playing just seems like they are meant for the role that they're in. Um and the chemistry, I mean, it's just great. I think um do you think I'll ask a question off top. You mentioned the interaction with Jin in the airport,
Mm-hmm.
where Mr. Pike's associate was basically threatening Jin.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like that would have obviously the plane crash, but if they landed in LA, do you think Jin would have changed his mind, or do you think he would have kept on with the plan for him and Sun to escape?
Seeing the flashback of that threat leads me to believe that no matter where Jin and Sun went, I think that they they were not free. Is honestly my reading of that. That the fact that you've got this guy, white, probably American guy, who's speaking English and then suddenly speaks Korean.
Hmm.
Um, to June, which is a total surprise to him. It was a surprise to me. And telling him that you will continue on, you'll do the watch delivery, you're never going to be free. And I honestly believe that. And I think that Jun was stuck. I
Yeah.
just don't think he had a way out. I think the threads of Mr. Pike uh, could reach that far.
Yeah,
And
because I think he says that he would lose her if he ran away or something like that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
but I think that the unknown there is the fact that I don't think her father knew that she wanted to run away necessarily. I think that's the one kind of ace in the hand is that maybe he doesn't know that she was planning to leave and
Yeah.
disappear and look like she had died, so she could just restart. But if they talked to each other, maybe they could have possibly done that. But, they don't have the network. So they're at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that really was a a startling scene because it starts off with him asking for a paper towel and realizing that Jin doesn't speak English, and then all of a sudden he just speaks Korean on a dime,
Hmm.
and it does it catch. I mean, you catches me off guard. I can't imagine anyone watching that and thinking, "Oh, of course he's being followed." I
Hmm.
wouldn't have thought he was being followed. It makes me
I didn't
wonder,
think
oh,
so
was he
either.
followed when he went back to see his father?
Yeah.
And when his father said to get away? Like, so,
Yeah, I didn't
oh,
even think about the ramifications of him going off to visit his father. Would make me think that, they probably investigated him, and would have found out that his father was actually still alive. And fishermen in this little village, that kind of thing. Um, Knowledge is power. And I truly think that the fact that the threat was there, that they knew that he wanted to run, I think was enough to scare him into being
yeah.
obedient, which is sad. The fact that he really did give up absolutely everything for her.
It's why I think them making amends last week was such a great moment.
Yeah.
Um, and just hoping that whatever happens on the raft and with her back on the island, it's like, there's like this just like hope of like, oh,
Hmm.
please come back together. Like,
Yeah.
so were there any other moments from the episode that you thought were that you highlighted?
I feel like I think I caught everything in the plot synopsis and then kind of my thoughts and through our discussion. I feel like everything got covered. How about for you? Do you feel like everything got covered for you?
Yeah, I think oh, the very first thing I highlighted was when they uh find the black rock at the beginning of the episode and Hurley's like, how does this happen? Like a boat in the middle of the jungle. And Russo just says, "Are you on the same island as me?" Like she just like, come on, you can't explain everything here. And so that was I think the only other thing I have highlighted that we didn't talk about. Um
That's a great line.
yeah. Oh, very last sentence. Whoever named this place Dark Territory, genius. So,
Yep. Yep.
that's my first and last highlighted comments. So
Very cool. Well, with that, I think we can wrap up episode 24, Exodus Part 2. So we will be back next week to wrap up Part 3 of Exodus. And so definitely join us. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. Right now, we're doing, at the time of recording, we are dropping one episode a week. We're focused in on Lost as our primary television series that we're deep diving in each week. So that releases every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mr. Travis's time zone. But yeah, and consider leaving a comment down below. Just remember that I'm the newbie, so if you do have spoiler alerts that are beyond next week's discussion or into season 2 or thereafter, please write a little spoiler alert notification and then drop down a few lines so that myself and anybody else that are newbies to the series won't get a big spoiler. So, otherwise, definitely thank you so much for joining us this week. We look forward to having you back again next week. Travis, I hope you have a wonderful week. Look forward
thanks, you
to
too.
our next discussion, which will be episode 25 to wrap
Season one finale.
yeah, the finale. And as a special treat, I think we're probably going to do a wrap-up episode to kind of highlight the highlights for ourselves through the first season. What things that, you know, we thought were great, tickled our fancy. I'm sure Arts will probably make another appearance in there. So, you know, because
Maybe
he's
a
quite,
little bit.
maybe just a little bit. Probably Sawyer in there somewhere too,
Yeah.
with all of his wonderful little Sawyerisms that he had throughout the first season. So, but that's it from us. We hope you have a wonderful week. And again, thank you so much for coming, listening to us, watching us. We sincerely appreciate it. Happy that you're as passionate about Lost as we are. Thank you so much. Have a great day, right?